Hey, so let's get started. It's 5 after, and it's time to go. So thank you again for joining. My name is Tom Wisniewski. I'm a product marketing manager for Dynamics 365, and today with me today I have Christopher Bates from Power Objects, and we're really talking about the migration story for BPS Capital Management. So from their what took them from their Dynamics 2011 instance of Dynamics CRM to the cloud. And Christopher, do you want to introduce yourself a little better, maybe?
Absolutely. Good morning, everybody. I'm Christopher Bates with Power Objects. I'm a project director and help to oversee a lot of the migration services that we've done over the years on behalf of Microsoft and our mutual customers. So great to see everybody.
So our agenda here today is pretty simple, right? We'll be talking about how BPS got started and why they decided to move to the cloud, the planning and considerations that went into that move, and then finally, we'll wrap things up with benefits and sort of takeaways. So for those of you who aren't familiar with BPS Capital Management, they are I would characterize them as a small and medium sized financial firm, investment firm based out of the suburbs of Minneapolis. And they really came to the Dynamics migration program. They were nominated by Power Objects to participate in this program. And Christopher, do you have any why we set up DMP, the Dynamics migration program, to really help our AX and CRM on-prem base, through this migration process? But from your perspective, right, as a migration partner, why is this program so valuable for customers like BPS Capital?
Absolutely. So early last year, 2020, Microsoft invested it very heavily in setting up the standard migration assessment, or SMA, for Dynamics CE. And it was about a 6-month program to establish that template, the kit of an SMA, the process, the platform assessment tool, which is a software package, the document templates. And then Microsoft published that in the middle of last summer to the partner community around the world. And the whole intention is a strategic initiative in order to help drive on-premise to cloud migrations for those customers who are kind of on the fence. They're been using on-premise for a while. Maybe they're several versions behind. Maybe they have some reasons that they've been on-premise for a while. And Microsoft really cleared the way, cleared a lot of obstacles out of the way with the standard migration assessment. It basically gives us as a partner the ability to look at an on-prem database of Dynamics CE and understand exactly where any issues might be before we even begin the migration process. We get a detailed report at the end of the standard migration assessment from the platform assessment tool that shows us kind of red, amber, green on several hundred data points. And it's been our experience doing hundreds of migrations and upgrades on Dynamics CE that it can take weeks, if not months, to hunt down all of the potential risks or things that need to be refactored or addressed as part of a migration. Again, Microsoft invested in this last year to put together the whole package and the tools and the templates. It's now a matter of a couple of weeks, and we get X-ray vision to really understand what it would take to move any on-prem database to the cloud. So it's been a huge benefit to us as a partner and to our mutual clients, and helping pave the way for them to understand not only what it would take, but also a lot of the benefits of moving to the cloud and some of the new features and functionality they have access to. So BPS Capital was a great story for us. Like you said, Tom, it's kind of like it's an interesting, almost like a poster child case study for us. Mid-sized client, solid user community, and the SMA really was a huge success for them, and it made their migration come off without a hitch, really.
when we look at the sort of the challenges and drivers that BPS Capital Management was experiencing, Christopher, right, in thinking about making this move to the cloud, I think they had been on, their CRM, 2011 for around a decade or so, and they just really started to notice that, the functionality really didn't meet their modern business needs. It was supported by a number of customizations, sort of keeping it alive and keeping it functioning. With the advent of COVID, there was this real push to continue and enable day-to-day operations while enabling folks to work from home, while also, some of the more common ones of wanting to get rid of their sort of legacy infrastructure and mainstream processes. Even though BPS is, a small and medium-sized organization, do these things resonate for you as a partner in terms of why and the challenges that customers are experiencing sort of on-prem and what's driving them to the cloud?
It really does. Microsoft has addressed a lot of the security questions around moving to the cloud. Those are resolved. Any compliance concerns are resolved. And so really it boils down to a matter of, as it always has, with, Microsoft gave the choice of on-prem versus cloud as a preference to customers. But a lot of these customers, and BPS Capital is one of these, has found that maintaining the infrastructure, the on-premise infrastructure, those costs are going up as more and more things have moved to the cloud. And maintaining the staff to maintain that infrastructure. And so retooling and moving and fully adopting Power Platform in the cloud allows our customers to adopt low-code, no-code solutions, all the strength of the Power Platform, Power Apps, Azure, the Dataverse, all of these things that are the latest and greatest technologies, and reduce overall IT spend. But in particular for BPS Capital, and like a lot of companies, a lot of us found ourselves in a position where we're kind of forced to work remotely more, and so that was a huge impetus for BPS Capital, is to enable their remote workforce more easily, and moving to the cloud allowed that to happen more securely for them. And then, like I said, they're just maintaining the cost. They had a 96 gigabyte database they were maintaining on premise. And fortunately, they already had a lot of Office 365 in place. Their users were already on Office 365. That kind of paved the way. But a lot of the benefits that BPS Capital saw are the same benefits that are kind of bringing this conversation to a head again this year with a lot of clients. Is it the right time for us to move to the cloud? And if it is, then that standard migration assessment, again, it just gives us like X-ray vision straight into the database, saves a lot of time to be able to run the platform assessment tool, software package you can download from Microsoft's website, on the on-premise database to evaluate your current solution, point out any areas that might need to be refactored. And we love seeing all the greens in there. It's just ready to migrate. And then, again, you're going to have some refactoring as part of that process when you find those areas that need to be reworked or could potentially be reworked. One of the decisions that you'll run into is, do we continue to maintain this legacy solution, even if it is compatible in the cloud? Or do we begin to refactor things into, for instance, Power Automate? Do we begin to adopt some of the real benefits of Power Platform online?
Maybe it would be good for us to sort of talk through that process, right, from SMA to sort of go live. With the SMA delivering sort of that technical functional report on not only the benefits of moving into cloud for your organization, but sort of how does it align with your business objectives, and really being the foundation for your cloud strategy, project plan, what have you. Can you walk us through sort of the high level, looking at and we'll dig into these a little bit later, but the migration planning and implementation go live process from a partner perspective?
Absolutely. So in our business at Power Objects, whenever we're approaching a client that has an on-premise database, whatever work it is that they're looking to do with us as a partner, we always run the platform assessment tool, the part of the standard migration assessment on their system. It just gives you so much detail and insight into what's in place today. And so if you're considering a migration, you're going to need to upgrade your on-premise system to the latest available and then begin the migration process itself. But really, you want to begin with that standard migration assessment. And this is available today from Microsoft. It's available through your partner. And it really gives you a chance to evaluate, like I said, not just the technical assessment of any areas, the red, amber, green flags that we have in the report, but also, like you said, Tom, aligning with business objectives and understanding what the new options are available in the platform and the new capabilities to stand up streamlined processes. And this is something that BPS Capital realized very quickly, streamlined processes and greater efficiency for end users. And this is a great, I mean, huge, and it seems like a migration to the cloud might be just kind of a yawn for an end user of Dynamics CE. But in fact, we can deliver a whole lot of value and very little effort to them so that when they do one or two things in the system picks those up, runs with them, and has a greater impact downstream in the overall workflow process. So things like automation, things like better reporting, and the functional and technical sides of it. So begin with the standard migration assessment. That's going to give you a great deal of insight. From there, you move into migration planning. Here again, having the details at your fingertips, knowing what you're getting into. Migration planning is critical. It's not a one-day event, certainly. The migration itself, we need to apply a process to it and some best practices. There's a timing factor as well when it comes time to migrate the database, do the LTS migration and the fast track, working with a fast track team. That has to be scheduled in advance. So understanding the details coming out of the standard migration assessment and then the path forward with migration planning. Then the implementation plan, we can execute the bits and bytes of the migration plan perfectly. The implementation itself is critical, absolutely critical that we nail end user adoption. There will be user interface changes as part of the migration to the cloud with the new UCI, the new end user experience. And we need to make sure that we address the change management and end user adoption and education aspects of this. And this is something that we at Power Objects are very passionate about and we've invested in. We have an entire practice area alongside our consulting delivery area that really just focuses on that change management, end user adoption, and education, those three. So implementation planning is not just about timing and execution of the migration itself. On the BPS Capital migration, it was almost flawless. There's very little, if any, impact, business impact to the end users because we had the technical planning locked down. We had the timing of the migration itself locked down. BPS Capital invested heavily in user acceptance testing, making sure that the new solution in the cloud, in the sandbox environment, fully met their end users' objectives. Like I said, they refactored a few things. A few of the kind of kludgy experiences that were in the on-premise environment where we were kind of limited by that technology. And basically took a massive spreadsheet that was performing absorbing trade details from a Bloomberg database and the entire BPS Capital solution kind of was focused on kind of a back-end system, where there were lots of integrations and they were bringing together a lot of data into Dynamics and using it to relate that data in new and interesting ways, refactoring that again for end users so that they could not only see the data related in new ways, but act upon it differently. Gave them a huge business benefit in 2 or 3 specific areas without really extending the migration timeline itself very far. Again, we're moving to the cloud. We're looking at low code, no code solutions. And then the go live, again, focus on end user training and just make sure that we we understand the impacts to those end users and their day-to-day role-based reality of their day-to-day life where they live. So the go live itself with BPS Capital was fairly seamless, which is what we shoot for. But it all plays back to starting with the SMA, moving through detailed migration planning and an implementation plan. And this is where, when you're working with a partner, the standard migration assessment itself kind of is a standalone. And at the beginning of the entire process, here's an example. And this is some of the learnings from the BPS Capital migration itself. But this is where you're going to get a 20 to 25 page Word document from the platform assessment tool that shows you red, amber, green in these various areas that might need to be refactored, might need to be addressed. Just read it in detail. We always assign a solution architect to work with our standard migration assessments to make sure that anything that's amber or red, we're making recommendations that are value add to our customers based on the findings of the platform assessment tool. So we can recommend, hey, you could rewrite this plugin to run in the cloud, or you could actually refactor that into Power Automate, and the rewrite effort might be 12 hours and refactoring might be 8 hours. And those are the kinds of value add recommendations that a good partner that's experienced in this kind of work can help our end customers.
And Christopher, so what would you say were some of the big takeaways from the SMA sort of final report, looking at the metadata? What did it enable Power Objects to do in terms of developing the migration plan for BPS Capital?
So the first thing we noticed is they had a fairly large database, 96 gigabytes. If you want to reduce the overall time of the migration itself, the timeline, one of the best things you can do is invest in trimming down that database. So look at record retention policies, look at your audit logs, and see which data you can actually remove from the system to reduce the size of that database. And that could accelerate the entire process for you. BPS Capital actually had extensive customizations, extensive custom code in their system. But what we found with the platform assessment tool, which walks through every single code item, is that there were only a handful of custom code areas, a little bit of JavaScript and plugins that would need to be refactored. So that was minimal, in spite of the fact that they had extensive legacy code. Almost all the customizations showed up in a report as supported. We find that there are a lot of on-premise customers that have moved ahead for whatever business justification reasons with unsupported customizations. There may be SQL triggers in the database. There may be coding directly against SQL tables. There could be unsupported code methods and so forth, because the on-premise database allowed some of those things. And again, the platform assessment tool highlights those. But in the case of BPS Capital, there were none of those. They had maintained a very good rigorous discipline around their development. There were a lot of data integrations. A lot of them were business critical, so we had to look at those data integrations and make sure the new endpoints repointed and the new methods were all supported. So again, it's just a matter of inventorying those things and going through the due diligence. That's why The platform assessment tool gives you a lot of detail. You still have to invest heavily in good, solid project management, project planning, and governance in order to do the migration. And then we refactored and rebuilt a bunch of custom reports that were not compatible with the new cloud environment using fetch XML and so forth. You're looking for a partner that has good, solid practices around general implementation planning. And when you dovetail that with the knowledge that you get from a standard migration assessment, your migration is well positioned. You're in a strong position to move forward.
Yeah, so now that we're, say, post-assessment, right, we're really looking at the planning and considerations that need to go into moving to the cloud, taking the SMA report, using that metadata and what you found from a technical functional perspective, and really applying that to your project plan. And this really sort of breaks down into 3 areas, and we'll sort of dig into these sort of generally with regards to what that process looks like, but then also specifically, what were the big key takeaways for BPS Capital within the various steps of the planning and implementation process. But at a high level, these really break down into 3 areas. Your evaluation, right? SMA, so you're even post SMA, you're still doing some evaluation. You're then creating your plan based on that evaluation. Let me advance the slide, that might help. But so post SMA, you're doing that evaluation, you're quantifying the work that is needed to move the things that you want to move or should move to the cloud while deprecating the other things, the things that you should be leaving behind, you leave those behind. And then you leverage that information to build a relatable plan, a connected plan to that information. Then while applying it to a go live that makes sense given those considerations for your business and also the objectives that you're trying to achieve. And so when we look at this implementation path in a little more detail, you can see it gets a little more complex. Christopher, any major takeaways here from the end-to-end process of post-assessment to go live that you think would be helpful to call out before we sort of dig into the BPS Capital specifics?
Definitely. I think a good partner or a good end customer, once you're familiar with the new system that you're going to be adopting, Dynamics CE Online, that expertise and that knowledge of the new system should really inform every step on the slide here. And so there's a fit gap that needs to occur in spite of the detail that we get of the current state system in the standard migration assessment. I mentioned the solution architect. There could be a business analyst or an application consultant that really understands the target system and can look at these things and make recommendations. That can be a huge time saver and accelerator for you, and you'll end up in a stronger position than the overall solution once you're online. So invest in the fit gap and understanding the new technology as much as possible. That will accelerate. It really just ensures that your timeline, if you have that expertise available during your planning, it makes sure that your timeline is realistic. If you move forward without that expertise, you could get into, for instance, sandbox remediation or build UCI form stages. And without that familiarity of the new system that you're adopting, that could cause those phases to double or triple in length, and then your timeline is at risk. So strong recommendation there. The other thing that we find is the go lives that where we are most successful, the go lives where it just goes off without a hitch. I think of Gene Kranz and Apollo 13, failure is not an option. And we just rehearse and rehearse and rehearse go lives until they go off without a hitch. What really puts us in a strong position for a flawless go live is testing. And so very rigorous QA testing, be deliberate, follow best practices, write down the test cases and execute them Same thing with integration testing, whether it's a data integration or an application integration. You need to make sure that any third-party solutions or integrations, third-party software systems that you have an application integration with are compatible with the version of the CRM online. You can do quick proofs of concept to make sure those are in place. But then once you're on the other side and you have the sandbox environment migrated to the cloud, just test. Full regression testing of the entire system. And then finally, we tend to, as in the industry, I think, underemphasize user acceptance testing. And that's, again, a passion area for us at Power Objects. We really want to make sure that our end users of Dynamics CE are impressed with the system, happy with the system, and that user acceptance testing. So selecting the UAT testers, training them on the new system and training them in the test process can be, it's a minimal effort. It's just a matter of a few days of their time, but that can make a huge difference for us. Again, we can get the bits and bytes correct. The variable these days for Dynamics CE implementations is how there are two, as I see it, there are major success factors. One is how well do you understand the new technology that you're adopting so that you can make solid decisions, design decisions architecturally about the new system. And the second is how well prepared is your end user community to adopt the new system, and how well aligned is the solution with their day-to-day business reality. So I would call out those two in particular: testing and end user adoption acceptance.
And so when we look at, the BPS story, right? What are the major things that for these various steps? What were the major things that stuck out in your mind, in Power Objects' mind, as they went through this planning process, implementation process with you all?
Sure. Well, again, BPS Capital was almost a poster child for us. It was a great story. And we've done hundreds of these migrations, but it's a good example because they chose to do things well. The preparation, we aligned with Microsoft and with their business and IT stakeholders to make sure we understand what are their drivers. Again, enabling the remote workforce, that was a crystal clear direction for us. So everything we did was focused on that. And then getting off the on-premise infrastructure. So we had options along the way as we re-architected integrations and so forth about leaving bits and pieces behind versus moving it to the cloud. And we strongly favored moving to the cloud. So the preparation, just getting very clear with the business on why they wanted to migrate was a huge help from the outset. The standard migration assessment, again, I can't say enough about the detail that we get out of that. And then the test migration, the sandbox remediation, those were just well-rooted in best practices for implementation overall. And a lot of the checklists that we have to drive the migration, the upgrades on-premise, followed by the migration. So those came off without a hitch. Again, it just comes down to the knowledge and experience of a good, solid partner, somebody who's been there and done that with you, can help you guide through those steps very quickly and easily. And then moving forward here, building out the UCI forms. Again, that's a new user interface for the specific to Dynamics CE Online. So building out those forms is a necessary step that you'll need to plan for. It's not hard, but you do need to understand you're going to be building out the UI again. And then allowing the end user community to influence that design.
And then in the testing.
Yep. So again, testing, I touched on this earlier, extensive testing around the financial data and the integrations with Bloomberg and other data sources that they had, and re-architecting some of their custom integrations using Power Automate gave them a lot of just a faster path to done and a lower cost to maintain those solutions. And then rebuilding the reports for them using supported methods was necessary. Again, that wasn't a huge effort. Really, it was the refactoring, testing the refactored complex spreadsheet that we built back into Dynamics. And then there was a custom plugin that we built for them to print off to generate a signed PDF with some trade details. So again, just testing, make sure everything is correct and usable for end users. Education, critically important. At PowerObjects, we have a number of university courses. You can find them on our website. These are available to the public as well as to all of our customers. Educating the end user community, educating the project team first on the new version that they're adopting before the migration begins is a best practice for us. And then educating the end user community in the new solution, especially focused on what's changed, what's new for them, and then supporting them with things like brown bag lunches, bring your questions for several days after the go live, and having power users in each business area, so everybody has somebody to turn to who's kind of a next tier of expertise in the new system. All of those things are best practice for us on the education side. And then the go live itself was seamless. It went off without a hitch. So.
Yeah, so let's now dig into sort of the the benefits and takeaways from this experience for BPS Capital. Right, these are some of the major, I would say, key functionalities that a lot of customers are looking for when making the move to the cloud. Are there ones here that you would sort of call out specifically for BPS Capital, or just in your mind that are a true value add to an organization that you're moving from on-premise to the cloud? The functionality, there's sort of leaps and bounds in terms of the functionality, but like, what about, say, the Power Platform? How does that play into the additional functionality and different additional capabilities that are possible once you're in the cloud?
It's been interesting, and I'd like to set this in a larger context for us. That when our customers migrate to the cloud from on-premise, again, it opens up the entire Power Platform is available to them from a technology, from an architectural standpoint. What we have found, Tom, is in the last year and a half, there's been a huge emphasis among our customer base in, once they've moved online, looking at all of these siloed applications and custom applications in their entire IT ecosystem and moving through an application rationalization process. And so we've developed some best practices at PowerObjects as we've worked with our customers through this process of understanding the bigger picture, what's around Dynamics, and how can we create seamless ecosystems built on Power Platform that are based on low-code, no-code solutions and really adopt the power of Azure and modern workplace. So this has become a practice area for us within PowerObjects, and we follow a lot of times the Gartner time model for application rationalization. Look at a current state system inventory, and then look at what might be necessary. What are the early candidates to move to Power Platform, and then we can spin up new Power Apps very, very quickly, seamlessly integrate them with Dynamics CE. We're sharing data in the Dataverse. We're sharing cross-platform compatibility with Power Automate, Power BI, and a lot of the tools and options that are available to cognitive services and so forth in Dynamics. So honestly, our practice at PowerObjects has adapted over the last couple of years. We now have a data practice that's entirely focused on the Azure data related services. And it's a new consulting area for us just in the last year, where we're looking at data governance with Power Apps and helping our customers, because it's very quick, very fast to spin up a new application. And we have this notion of citizen developers now. And so applying a lot of best practices to that and helping our customers adopt those new solutions very quickly, consolidate a lot of their disparate systems that are built on Java, they're built on .NET, they're built on custom applications, bringing those together onto the Microsoft Power Platform. So not only do we see the benefits of directly to the Dynamics CE application itself and the extensibility, the ease of integrations with other systems once we're in the cloud, we're seeing slower digital transformations take place among our customer base, far more common and at lower cost. But all of that boils down to really understanding the new system that you're adopting and the educational aspects for the IT team to understand the new capabilities of Azure and Power Platform so that they can make smart decisions when it comes to application rationalization in their entire ecosystem. So it's been a game changer, honestly. Moving customers to the cloud opens a new world for them.
So when we look at sort of the benefits of that BPS Capital saw, right, in making this move, you know, as you mentioned before, right, their implementation went pretty smoothly for any organization, right, with really very little downtime or no downtime with the go live. They were able to eliminate those that sort of long-standing legacy infrastructure and the related expenses from, you know, having maintaining legacy servers on premise, you know, replacing that, all of those invasive customizations that they had within their on-prem solution, and really leveraging the out-of-box functionality in the cloud, and then really just, you know, all of the efficiencies gained from moving to the cloud allowed them to transition a lot of, you know, move resources around and and really fund more growth areas within their business. Anything else that you would sort of add to this list that maybe isn't sort of called out?
Yeah, no, that's exactly right. It was a great story because they had clear business objectives. We were able to partner with them and just nail it. We met their objectives and then exceeded them. Being able to advise them on how to refactor some of their extensive customizations into low code, no code stuff online. That was a huge help. And streamline, like you said, a handful of processes that were fairly complex, and because of the limitations of the on-premise system that they had, they couldn't quite finish the last mile to get those applications or to get those features built into Dynamics. When they went to CRM Online, we were able to deliver that for them. So it was a very fast, very successful program for them, and we were very, very pleased with the results. And now, of course, they're in that stronger position where they can fully adopt and continue to drive IT costs, operational costs down, and drive new features and capabilities to their end users, because there was a lightweight transformational aspect of the BPS Capital story, where they went from using the Dynamics CRM 2011 on-premise as kind of a back-end system, aggregating data from multiple disparate systems, lots of integrations, complex code, moving that to a system that end users could act upon that data in intelligent ways. They didn't lose what they had before, the new data relationship, but they gained a handful of new features and functions, and then they gained overall the ability to act upon and work with the data in more intelligent ways. Not unusual for our customers to see that, and kudos to them for seeing the migration as more than just a lift and shift, but a real opportunity to work with a partner and add value without necessarily increasing their timeline.
Christopher, why is leveraging a partner so important in this process from your perspective, right? As a migration partner, what is the differentiator there with trying this sort of on your own and like doing it with a partner that is sort of, you know, knowledgeable and understands the whole, you know, end-to-end implementation process in moving to the cloud?
Sure. Well, I've taught 2 of my kids how to drive, and I didn't let them into the car to learn on their own. The migration itself is something that you could do without a partner, certainly. But you know, I would suggest you can have a sequence of events, but perhaps not a timeline. And there should be a good, solid investment in education to understand the new system before you start. But there's still going to be a great deal of risk to your end user community around the go live. There are just a lot of moving parts. We started this conversation 40 minutes ago talking about Microsoft's investment in the standard migration assessment to pave the way. Remember, the platform assessment tool looks into the Dynamics CRM on-premise database and finds hundreds of data points to report out as potential red, amber, green items that require your attention. And then what you do with those requires a good deal of expertise in understanding that not only the current state system version, but the new one as well. And so when we talk about a partner, I tend to think in terms of, well, any kind of a partner. What would I look for in any business or technology partner? And the first thing I would look for is somebody that I like and trust, somebody that has experience doing the things that we plan to do together. They're not new to it, so I would look for volume, be open about asking for sample deliverables from their prior projects. How many times have they done this before? Check with the team, make sure you understand who the solution architect will be, project manager, business analyst, or application consultant. Just look for a proven success record in a partner. We look at the investment that our clients make in our partnering relationship, and our objective at PowerObjects is to deliver a 10 to 20x return on investment in the investment that our customers make in our time back to them. We take it seriously as a responsibility. And so our goal is to, at the end of the day, save our clients a lot of time and money, and then put them in a position to acquire additional revenue themselves. So I would just say, look for a partner that you really like, a partner that you trust. Talk to Microsoft, talk to the end user community out there. Find out who the partners are, whose names keep coming up as somebody that has a proven success record in doing what you want to do, in this case, migrate.
Yeah, so that's a perfect transition here to, like, if you're not sure where to get started, I would really recommend joining our Dynamics 365 migration community. You can connect to experts and partners there, really learn from their experiences and from the experience of other customers that are going through similar migration process and have similar questions, and they're trying to get them answered along, like everyone else. So that's a great place to start. We have also centralized all of our migration resources and content there. So things like this webinar will be posted there. Resources on the SMA are posted there. So it's just a great place to, if you're not sure where to get started, or if you have questions, it's really just a great resource for anyone, regardless of where you are in your migration journey. So with that, we'll open it up for questions. And, I think I'd really like to bring in Beth Barrel from the Microsoft team here, who is so, thanks for joining us, Beth, today. And I just, I wanted to ask, from your perspective, where is when should a partner be involved, and when is Microsoft, and when and where is Microsoft really involved in this process?
Well, Microsoft is definitely, you can utilize their on-prem to online factory for the lift and shift of the database. And they have a process where you can upload your database to an LCS, and I use the technical, and they plop it into your sandbox. The partner is best for helping you plan and mitigate the fixes that are needed to use the new online version, because there is a bit of a difference. But the partner has years and years of experience. Microsoft has experience. You really need to utilize them both, but Microsoft is the on-prem to online. Right now, it's an investment to the customer, and then some of it, if it is a lift and shift, it's not a hard, fast track gets involved to help that out. A partner really has the experience of, okay, what looks different? How should it be different? You can do that, some of it on your own, but it's kind of like, when you do something the first time, you might be okay at it, but you're not great. Your partner, like Chris, they've done it, hundreds of times, if not thousands of times, so they can probably make quick work of it and do it quicker than you can and more efficiently. So really, hate to use the word partner again, but it is a partnership between the customer, Microsoft, and the partner to get this working right. So definitely use Microsoft to lift and shift, and the partner to make sure everything is smooth on the whatever needs to be mitigated.
And so, Beth, would you say that there's a playbook for adopting an online version of, your CRM?
Yeah, there's what they call the UCI playbook, and I could put that in the chat. But what happens is they have on Microsoft the Docs site under the Microsoft Docs, they have a UCI playbook that talks about best practices for learning and getting your users to adopt the playbook. Again, the playbook is just what it is. It gives you some scenarios, but you have to adjust it to your business.
And so, Beth, from the Microsoft perspective, are there any other considerations that, as a customer is going through from SMA to implementation, are there any other considerations that they should be thinking about?
Well, the biggest thing is it's depending on how size you're, but it's not a treat it like a project, even if it's a small mini project. I always say that your go live is only as good as your testing. So if you don't test something, you don't want it to go wrong at go live. So my big thing is just put a mini project plan together. It doesn't take you that much extra time. Work to find out where your issues might run into. Make sure you're testing not only daily functionality, but maybe something you do once a week or once a month or once a year. And utilize your partners, right? They again, they have the experience. They've done it before. If you run into something that you haven't seen before, your partner probably 90% of the time has seen it before. They have the experience. So it is something that I would say, test, and test some more. But it's easier, in the cloud, it's easier. It's a lot more fun, a lot more features. But just make sure, you're doing your diligence. Treat it like a project, not just like a second thought.
Yeah, absolutely. Are there any other questions in the chat? I can't really, I'm Command Central here, so I can't really see if there are questions in the chat. Or Christopher, any other final thoughts for us on this process?
No, I would echo what Beth said. Use all the resources that are available to you. Certainly invest in education in your team. You can't go wrong if you're moving to the new version. You're going to want to really understand that anyways. So find those educational resources technically for your project team to understand Power Platform, Dynamics CE online, migration process itself, and just call an expert if you need help.
Great. So Microsoft team, any other questions, or I know that we're coming up on time here, so.
I don't see any at the moment.
Okay, perfect. So with that, thanks so much for joining today. Hope you enjoyed the presentation, and please, as I mentioned at the top of the sort of hour, please fill out that post-webinar survey, because it really does provide us with really important feedback on these presentations overall and sort of where we should go next in terms of content. So thanks so much for joining us today.